Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
And we're back with our guest today, Chris Burgard. He is an award-winning filmmaker, documentarian, and professional truth seeker. He was a director of Capital Punishment and sequel to War on Truth, and now coming out with what is going to be a blockbuster documentary regarding Islam, the red-green axis, and everything in between. The attack on Texas. Remember the Alamo. RememberTheAlamoMovie.com. Chris, it's great to have you on the show.
Matt, thank you. So I just feel blessed to be here.
So you have done a lot of cutting-edge filmmaking, called attention to some things that we're still talking about even to this day. What made you choose this subject in Texas?
I didn't. God did. He so called us to this. You know, I was just an average cowboy in Hollywood, 20-some years ago. And the Lord put us on the border. We made a movie about the border called Border, which changed my wife and I's lives. And I thought we were going to be back doing pop culture things. That was our plan this January. But God had other ideas. 19 years ago, I first ran into jihadis in Texas. I worked the border on and off for 21 years. So we ran into jihadis in Huntsville County, Texas. The Sinaloa cartel was bringing jihadis through there, and they threatened to cut off my friend's wife's head and take it back in Chihuahua. So we staged there with 5 different law enforcement agencies, and that's how I met a guy named John Guandolo, who at the time was doing a task force out of DOD that Rich Higgins put together, which now I think you know John pretty well, because you got the 3 Musketeers, you, John Bennett, and John Guandolo, and the entire ASIG team, which is just amazing. But I kept running into more jihadis. We ran into them again a few years later in South Texas, where they were coming through my friend Mike Vickers' ranch. And when they were in pursuit, the coyote dropped an Urdu dictionary. That's how he's using to communicate with these guys in the field. And then a few years later, we're sitting there reading the Daily Mail paper to find out that CAIR had bullied our school superintendent into putting Sharia law into my daughter's middle school. And people didn't understand what first was going on. They thought, they just didn't want to offend anybody. But because of the training and understanding the threat that Guandolo had put together and that we had been doing for years, I knew it was going on. And luckily, my buddy, who was head of the school board, his family had escaped from Iran. He knew it was going on. So that enabled my wife and I to get together with him, rally the churches, address the town council on Wednesday. The word went out in the town. Everybody came to the school board meeting on Thursday. And in an unprecedented move, the school board, 5-0, liberals, conservatives alike, voted to overturn this Sharia decision that CAIR had put on our kids. And what was so amazing about that is it was actually the dialogue was led by the conservatives by the liberals, because they were so offended about the attack on the First Amendment. And these folks stood up to this. CAIR said they were going to sue them, and they told them to bring it, that they were ready for a fight like that. And this is just months after the attacks of Charlie Hebdo and the shooting at Garland in Texas at the Dral Muhammad contest. So these just regular folks stood up, beat the crap out of CAIR, and damn the torpedoes. And that was a success story, a win that we now want to replicate in all of Texas. Because here in Texas, people have even more cojones than the folks back in California when they're presented with the accurate facts. And when they realize that this isn't condemning another religion, but this is standing up to a clash of civilizations, Texans stand real tall. So That's why we did this movie. That's why we're in Texas. That's why we're premiering it on June 28th.
Well, I think that that's an important, very important point, that Sharia is incompatible with Western civilization. There is no way it can compete, because its own stated doctrine, its own stated goals are to dominate, to crush, to subdue every other system, not just religion. And this is so critical for people to understand. Every other system. In other words, the Constitution would not exist. It would just be Sharia. Other religions would not exist except for three: Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians, who would have to pay a tax under Sharia to be enslaved. So this is normative, authoritative Islam. And I think calling attention to this should drive home the fact that it's not enough to just say that Sharia should be prohibited, like the Texas and fantastic vote, 2 million people back on March 3rd said to prohibit Sharia law. CAIR was declared a terrorist organization. It's not enough. This has to be stopped, and it has to be completely rolled back. And we're really at a decision point in the United States of America, aren't we?
We're absolutely at a tipping point, and they've targeted Texas. It's being branded throughout the rest of the globe in Islamic circles that Dallas is the new Mecca of the West. And Matt, just to address what you just said, you're 110% on point, but I think you're not even going far enough. It's not that Sharia is in conflict with the Constitution. Sharia is an enemy of the Constitution because it seeks to subvert and replace the Constitution. Therefore, every law enforcement official, every military person, every politician that's ever taken the oath of office to defend the Constitution needs to be against Sharia law. And if their efforts, like we see here in Texas, we have politicians that are supporting Muslim Brotherhood organizations and mosques that are pushing Sharia. To me, right there, that is a violation of their oath of office, and they need to be taken out of office and possibly even face criminal prosecution for betraying their oath.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Right now in Texas, the governor has made a very clear statement regarding CAIR, regarding the Muslim Brotherhood, but it seems like not anything really is happening. CAIR is still operating, it's still owning property, its doors are still open, it's still lobbying, it's still operating at the local level. How does that get tipped?
So that right there is a $64,000 question, and I wish the governor would have been in this film. We reached out to him to be a part of it and to take meetings, and he chose not to. Nobody was more excited than myself and those I work with when he stood up and declared Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR terrorist organizations. And he's absolutely correct in doing that. However, he never codified it like they did in say, Florida. So my buddies that are veterans are like, I don't understand what's going on. If we were in Iraq or Afghanistan, we'd be apprehending these folks or worse. And here, he comes out with that statement, and then you have the Democrat Party and some Republicans getting together people in CAIR in Austin to celebrate Ramadan and put out, want to make, Muslim month. It's just, it's crazy. And Matt, I want your audience to be really clear on this. We did not make an anti-Muslim movie. We just made an anti-Sharia law movie. I had my life saved in Africa by a young Muslim ranger, and I would go anywhere in the world to help Abdi if he needed help. But if I travel to Pakistan or Qatar, I follow their laws. Abdi's not coming here to Texas to change the Constitution. So that's the whole point right there. Why should we cut our own throats through empathetic suicide when it's not a two-way street?
Very well said. And this goes hand in glove with the communist movement in the United States of America. Dallas, again, right dead center. You have the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club. And it's interesting how it was labeled in the media. It was labeled as a Antifa cell. No, it was the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club members. In fact, one of them, I think, just got one of those Antifa members got popped today with 100 years in prison. So we aren't talking about people that are just trying to voice an idea, as the mainstream media used to say, or Antifa is just an idea. It's not really a movement. This was an actual terror cell. It was bent on creating destruction and taking life in Dallas, Texas. But what I think most people are missing is this is not in isolation, that the communist movement in the United States and the jihadi movement in the United States are working seamlessly at the ground level in a red-green axis.
Oh, absolutely. You know, if you go on AI on the computer and you Google something, AI will spit out one translation, one version. And let me use this for example. If you read the Surah, and for your audience, you know, we Christians make the mistake. You know, the Christians, the Bible, everything we want to know about Christianity is in the Bible. If you're a Muslim, the Quran is only 14% of Islam. You have to read the Hadiths, especially those of Bukhari, and you have to read the Surah. The Surah is Muhammad's biography.
Talking about Islam, and we're talking about the red-green axis. You
Right,
were
okay, so the
going in the
red-green
direction of commonality. Yep.
Right. So if you read in the Surah, what was the last thing that Muhammad said before he died? And he told his wife, Aisha, the one he married when she was 6 years old, he said to make sure that his people continued paying the bribes to the ambassadors of the Jews and the Christians, and that Islam must be the only religion in Arabia. If you go look it up on the computer and AI spits it back, it says that he wanted women to be equal with men, and he was really trying to get peace with the Jews and Christians. It's not the same. So right now, if somebody comes and some young mind wants to know more about Islam and more about why this is a problem, they're going to go on their computer and they're not even going to get what's in the original text. That can only happen with the Red-Green Alliance, because it's not the imams that are running the media. It's the Marxists that are working to infiltrate into this country. I mean, that's why when BLM started, who were two of the biggest proponents to help them get started? It was the CCP and it was the Muslim Brotherhood. And that's who we're facing.
You know, most people think about Texas. They think of Texas as just invincible. Everything is bigger in Texas. And yet, Texas has actual areas where Sharia is being adjudicated right now, has areas that are under Sharia law right now. And I think most people in the United States are like, there's no way that's possible. How could that possibly happen in Texas? But it's not just in the big cities either. This is happening, like you mentioned earlier, even school districts, rural areas of Texas. If you could, kind of give a scope of this problem, and what do you address in the movie about the scope of this problem?
Well, the movie, first of all, you can't, look, this is a war, and we didn't start it. This is, if you understand fifth generation war, this is absolutely war where the far left Marxists have hooked up with Islam. You have to stop thinking of Islam as a religion. Islam is a civilization. It's a totalitarian, oppressive political system that uses religion to get the camel's nose underneath the tent. So what we address in the movie is the first thing you see is, what is Islam? Who was Muhammad? And you hear from folks on our side and on their side. And when people understand that, then they go, oh, wait, this is different than what I've been told all these years. Then when you get to what's at the heart of Texas, I didn't even know until I started doing this movie how many friends of mine were 7th and 8th generation Texans that had ancestors that fought at Sanchez Hito, that fought around here. We have an ancestor that we're 95% sure died at the Alamo, William Lightfoot. That breeds a particular type of DNA in your character about standing up. So while right now I believe is the spread of Sharia is winning in Texas, that's because Texas has been asleep, and the places they've hit now are just too good-hearted or too far left. And I'll use this for an example. Dallas, Texas. They built 24 mosques in 24 months. I'm 2 hours east of Dallas. You just come out the 30, out to where we are. Now they're trying to build an 9.5 acre Islamic center out here. Well, East Texas isn't Dallas. In East Texas, for all the y'all that don't know, the most political question you get when you come to East Texas is, what church do you go to? Not do you go to church, it's what church do you go to? We already have a Pine Baptist Church. They're putting together a rally of pastors in August. that they're waking up the remnant church up here. The church is going to get together and fight this. And it's a battle that you can see lining up. For instance, in the two counties, we have Camp County, Titus County. They call it a mosque. It also doubles as a retail store. And the family's been here since the early 90s, really nice folks. And they get together and they pray there. Down the road, they want to build this 9.5 acre Islamic center where they bought the property on a hill overlooking one of the oldest Baptist churches in Titus County. And if you understand military history, you always want to take the high ground, and it sends out a message. The fella that runs this other mosque, he said to me, Chris, I have nothing to do with those guys. I don't know why they're doing this. If we had 70 or 80 Muslim families in the two counties, I could maybe see that. And I said, well, how many do we have? And he says, there's 6, maybe 7. So obviously what they do is it's just like in a military campaign, you take the ground, you seed that ground. And when they plant an Islamic center 3 miles in every direction, they consider that their territory. So what you're seeing going on in East Texas is an attempt to grab this territory, you build the Islamic center, and then you bring the people in. And that brings us to something called Hijra. You know Hijra, Matt?
Of course, absolutely. I think when we talk about jihad, most people focus on the violent aspect of it. But the fact of the matter is that the Muslim Brotherhood said, wait a minute, why don't we go back to what Muhammad actually did? And that was do jihad through immigration. So go ahead.
Exactly. You are 100% right. Hijra is immigration jihad. And it started because when you read the Surah, before you read the Quran, anybody who wants a short read, please read the Surah first. Because if you understand who Muhammad is, if you understand that the goal of every good Muslim is to copy him, to imitate him, to live life just like Muhammad did, then you understand what it is we're facing. For 14 years, he preached in Mecca. His uncle was the head of Mecca, and he protected him. So for 14 years, he preached Islam peacefully. And after 14 years, they had 130 converts. What is that, 9.5 people a year? But when he gets kicked out of Mecca and he goes to Medina, now all of a sudden he starts getting violent and he puts this business model out. You can kill in the name of Allah as long as I get 20%. Go raid these caravans. The Jews and the Christians are now fair game, as are your fellow Muslims, which before that was taboo. He gets very rich, gets his power, and by the time he dies 10 years later, he's conquered all of Arabia, and that strategic military business model carries on to overtake country after country for 1,400 years. And what you're seeing now, the spread of Islam was stopped at the gates of Vienna, militarily wise. But just in the last 20 years, through Hijra, immigration jihad, it is now 10% of Vienna, where tens of thousands of Christians died to stop Islam, is now 10% Muslim. You look at what's happening in France, in Germany, in the UK. They laugh now, and they're laughing at us because we've invited this civilization in, and they're getting into government and getting people to follow Sharia instead of the native constitution. And I'll give you an example for this right now. Tommy Robinson. I don't know if he's been on your show. Tommy's 13-year-old cousin, Hannah, was raped by a room full of bearded Muslim men. And the police did nothing about it because they didn't want to be racist or called racist. And the other reason that nothing was done about it, and what's not being done about it throughout the UK, is because you have so many Muslim folks into the government that to them, a crime was not committed. Because under Sharia, if a woman isn't covered, under Sharia, if she's kafir, a Jew or a Christian or Zoroastrian, you're allowed to rape her. That is given to you under the laws of Allah, which is Sharia. So that's what we're seeing over there, and that's what you're starting to see happen here. The whole Plano, Frisco area. You'll see in the movie we had not too long ago, a father who killed both of his daughters because he thought they shamed him in an honor killing. And you hear the voice of this poor little girl calling in 911 as she's bleeding out. That is under Sharia law. that is being practiced here in Texas. And what you hear all over the country is from law enforcement that aren't aware, the Muslim communities, we love them. We never get calls. We never do this. It's great. Why? Because they have their own Sharia police, their own Sharia courts, and they're creating a parallel society within the borders of the United States of America in direct opposition to the Constitution.
When we come back from the break, more with Chris Burgard, his new film, Explosive. Remember the Alamo movie.com.
Your financial advisor isn't going to tell you this. Your bank won't mention it. And your 401k custodian, they're hoping you never find out. You can convert your retirement account into physical gold and silver, real metal in your hands, or stored exactly where you decide. It's called a gold IRA rollover, and it's 100% legal, 100% IRS approved. And your financial, quote, experts, they don't get a commission when you take control like this. Wall Street wants your money in their system, in their accounts, where they control it. But physical gold, that's yours. Can't be hacked, can't be deleted, can't vanish when the market crashes. Verity Metals, we're the experts they don't want you to call.
Convert your IRA or 401k into gold and silver that you can actually hold. Call 888-328-6703 or visit veritymetals.com because your retirement should be in your hands, not theirs.
Country within 20 years.
I stood outside a mosque in Manchester, and when I stood there, within a 2-mile radius, I found that 16 people had gone to fight for ISIS.
And you see areas like Paris or London, whose culture is being absolutely eroded.
You have a lot of people from the Muslim Brotherhood that have infiltrated all areas of our intelligence community, of our legal community, and into the government.
Why would you put a knife to your own throat?
Army Major Nadal Hassan was convicted of killing 13 people and wounding 32 others.
The state with the most jihadi attacks in the United States, Texas.
We are in a battle not just for the future of Texas or the future of the United States of America. Texas is on the front lines in the battle for nothing less than the future of Western civilization.
Don't be deceived and don't be afraid.
You have Texas politicians believing in whatever keeps them elected.
If Texas falls, the rest of the United States falls.
Don't mess with Texas.
Shepherds aren't weak, and I'm not weak, and I'm not going to let anyone come in here and hurt this flock.
America starts in Texas. This is another Alamo. This time, we're going to win.
The battle for Texas begins now.
Premiering on July 4th, remember the Alamo movie.com. Chris Burgard, you were labeled a terrorist. I've been labeled a terrorist.
Labeled? I was investigated by the Department of Justice and our own FBI as a terrorist. And let me tell you, my dad graduated in 109th session at Quantico, Virginia, at the FBI Academy. So I took this freaking personally.
Yeah, both of us have served and served overseas. And my issue here is that God is our vindicator, and there's an aspect of this movie that is vindicating those that have been sounding the alarm, that have been working for years and years to call attention to the communists and jihadis trying to take this country down, which is why they actually labeled all of us terrorists, because they were covering for what they were doing. What do you hope to see in that respect out of this movie? And what is your message to the United States of America in regards to the people that have been blowing the whistle, have been sounding the alarm, have been standing on that wall?
Well, those that have been on the wall, I say thank you. And I think you're about to see a reversal. We're at a tipping point here in Texas. And I think what you're going to see in Texas is people standing up. Things are escalating very quickly. People are starting to understand this is a battle of good versus evil. We just had, I don't know if you saw this video, Matt, a couple days ago. There was a massage therapist at an HEB, which is our big grocery stores down here. And she was in a conversation with two Muslim women. And I wasn't there before the tape started rolling, but apparently there was some back and forth. And she stated a couple of facts. She said that Muhammad was a pedophile, that he was a warlord, and that she did not welcome that whole type of civilization into Texas, that Texas is a Christian state. That woman lost her job. She was vilified online in the media as a hater, as a bigot. But the cool part is somebody put her on GoFundMe to raise a bunch of money for her because she lost her job. I think it was at $70,000 or $80,000 after 24 or 48 hours. that shows me that woman that was, brave enough to stand up to her for herself, there's a lot of silent majority behind her that has yet to be awoken. So my hopes for this movie, and we're going to take this movie after we release it, we're going to go on tour throughout all of Texas. We're getting calls from the rest of the country to come out too. We won't turn those down, but I firmly believe that when we hit a third of the counties in Texas, maybe even only a quarter, and people understand what the threat is, they understand who they're dealing with, it will give them the strength and the inspiration to stand up and say, no, I like Texas. I like Texas being a Christian state. I like Texas being where I walk in the mall and I see more cowboy hats than burqas, because there are places within 2 hours around us. You go to a mall, you go to a store, you're going to see more hijabs and you're going to see cowboy hats. And what we have in Texas, I don't know if y'all have it in your state, but we have our own pledge here, and it's honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible, yeehaw. Okay, that's who we are. That's what public school kids say every morning when they go to school. Either we mean that, and you're going to see Sharia law kick the heck out of here, and you're going to see it just San Jacinto de heck, or we don't mean that. And I think we do mean that. I've seen this training all over the country, but when it came to the Texans, they stood up so freaking hard. And what people need to remember, we lost the Alamo, okay? Our ancestors died at the Alamo, and after 13 days of siege, they died in 90 minutes. However, that gave Sam Houston the time to equip and train and gather up an army that beat a much larger Mexican force at the Battle of San Jacinto in only 8 minutes. So while we remember the Alamo, what the Islamic world needs to understand is they haven't seen San Jacinto number 2 yet. And when San Jacinto number 2 comes in, it's going to turn things around. And again, I'm talking about doing this peacefully. I firmly believe that if we did not make this movie, if we did not wake people up peacefully and instruct them how to legally stop Sharia from spreading, you would see violence in Texas. I don't know when, but absolutely you would, because there's no way good old boys in Texas are going to put up with rape gangs or any of this other crap, or people coming in and vandalizing our churches. That just would not happen. If somebody vandalized a church down here or raped somebody's daughter, I don't think the police could get there fast enough. I think the neighbors would get there first.
Well, I think that's critical. It's very important to understand that as Christians, sounding the alarm is actually what brings peace. People mobilizing now while we have the opportunity to stop it is what is absolutely different from us in England. Tommy Robinson over there doing a great job, but he's playing, by his own admission, playing catch up, trying to undo what's already been done. And that's why he's been coming to the United States saying, don't go down the same road that we are. Chris, how can people get involved? Where can they go to get more information, buy the movie, and also maybe get a screening in their town?
Just go to rememberthealamomovie.com and you can get the movie there. And to get a screening, just reach out to us through the website, and we will have our team coordinate with you to bring not just a screening, but to bring a member from the Allied Special Intelligence Group with us so they can train your community. Everywhere the training has come in, Sharia has been stopped. And what you're going to see is how we won in my daughter's school is how we're going to win Texas. So just reach out to us at rememberthealamomovie.com.
Chris Burgard, thanks for joining me on Patriot Radio. Blessings to you. Godspeed. Thank you for everything that you're doing in the fight for freedom and liberty so that the next generations can live free. God bless you, brother.
God bless, man.
Chris Burgard, rememberthealamomovie.com. It is going to be coming to Spokane. I will have that announcement coming very, very soon. But the premiere nationwide is going to be on July 4th. Share this with your friends and family. This is what the real fight has been. And a caution. One of the biggest opponents to actually exposing the communist and jihadi networks in the United States of America has been establishment Republicans, and we need to be very blunt and very honest about that, especially in Washington state. Well, that's about to change because the truth is coming. And if we remember the Alamo, we will stand free for this next generation. All of us need to hear this call We all need to be watchmen on that wall. And this is a decision point for the United States of America. Which direction are we going to go? Are we going to continue to be a country that is based on Judeo-Christian principles, the blood of Jesus Christ? Or a country that's based on Marxism, or worse, Sharia, is soaked in the blood of man? I don't know about you and your house, but as for me and my house, we will follow the Lord. This is Matt Shea. Thank you so much for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. Remember thealamomovie.com.